Hi, I'm Kirk Doolittle of the Proprietarian Institute of Natural Law. This continues our section on the European group strategy with our foundations, the law. In the last section, I tried to show you that the evolution of European organization, social organization as entrepreneurial, was driven by necessity, not choice, and it was the only choice available. In this section, we're going to go into a little more detail, and so we're going to, now that we've covered the incentives, in other words, how did this civilization come about, and we're going to talk about how to express that in law, or how to articulate it formally. Because it's only once we articulate this set of ideas formally that we can put them in constitutions, and then we can protect them from assault, undermining, and civilizational destruction from within and without. So the group strategy of the European people is what we find in the founding principle of the United States Constitution, in the British Constitution, and the long history of Germanic common law, which we call traditional law, the Roman and Greek law, and the foundations even in the Western Indo-European traditional law. That is, by continuous rapid innovation, adaptation, and evolution, by an entrepreneurial and anti-authoritarian civilization, where decidability is provided by rule of law, by the natural law of self-determination, by self-determined means, by the reciprocal grant of, inalienability of, and insurance of sovereignty in all our demonstrated interests, and reciprocity in all display word and deed, to all members of the polity able, willing, and sworn to exchange them, producing a distributed dictatorship of individually sovereign people, and together their power to deny to any and all, resulting in markets in all aspects of life, association, cooperation, reproduction, commons, polities, and as a consequence producing the fastest innovation and adaptation of knowledge, economy, polity, war, and man, by the continuous evolution of human agency, producing the greatest transcendence of man as well, in the shortest time, under the greatest prosperity, with the greatest certainty, and the continuation of natural selection by suppression of reproduction of those demonstrating unfitness for all of those markets. This is a via negativa human organization by rule of law, ternary logic, and adversarial market competition producing continuous evolution. You can't organize people to evolve faster. It's not possible. You can organize people to catch up by fascism or authoritarianism, and you can slow people down by theology and wisdom literature and philosophy. But there's only one most fastest, most optimum, most adaptive method of organizing people, and that's it. So this strategy forces us to find adaptive rather than maladaptive solutions to opportunities and stresses of the day. While it might appear that it's less efficient to pseudo-intellectuals like the French and the Jews and the Muslims, and maybe even the Chinese, it's more efficient and more adaptive over time. So while, as I said earlier, if you want to catch up a civilization, in other words, if you know what to do, authoritarianism is useful in reorganizing a society to know what to do. The problem is that we rarely know what to do unless we're behind. So instead, it's better to use the state to organize us for that which markets cannot accomplish: fundamental research, fundamental exploration, warfare, and use the limits of markets for everything we can: opportunity exploitation, commoditization, efficient management, efficient production, financing, production, distribution, and trade. And it's also efficient to use commons, norms, and traditions to educate people. Well, that's really what religions used to do, but now they're sort of fallen behind. But teach people mindfulness within the group evolutionary strategy so that this continuous adaptation is possible. I mean, that's what Christianity did for Europeans. It provided the bottom classes a means of obtaining self-mindfulness, peace of mind, self-virtue, in charity and care and love, despite the fact that they were in a civilization who is most adaptive, most evolutionary, that puts the most stress on the bottom. As such, Jesus gave us the one answer we needed. If Jesus existed, he gave us the one answer that we needed, which is a religion to help the average person or the below average person tolerate the stress of continuous adaptation by the one method that is possible to assist us in tolerating that, and that's love and trust. So the example of the best example is the structure of American government, which prohibits judicial construction of via positivas. In other words, the fact that our judges can't make law or aren't supposed to, unfortunately they have started to because of the Jewish influence by Dworkin, Kelsey, and all these others of positive law. We prohibit our judges to doing that because it forces the people and the legislatures, which are supposed to be composed of the people, to find solutions that are not a violation of natural law. This also explains the failure of majoritarian government versus houses as markets between the classes, where trades can be constructed between the powerful, the top, the productive, the middle, and the dependent, the bottom. So we have tried by the many fallacies self-congratulatory fallacies we've told ourselves about the virtues of democracy, most of which are false. We have undermined our historical advantage in producing harmony, commons, and the benefit for everyone, and by constructing markets between the classes, where our judiciary is limited to forcing us to construct markets between the classes and finding solutions that don't violate natural law. So whether positive law, democracy, socialism, communism, fascism, the problem's the same. It's the circumvention of adaptation that's necessary by the use of markets, and they're trying to that force us into reciprocal exchanges. The most common of which is manners, ethics, morals, and good behavior of the peasantry in exchange for redistribution of goods in the form of commons and the redistribution of power by inclusion in the political decision-making under those terms, just as it's a negotiation or a trade between the upper and the middle classes who gain the benefits of the productivity of the middle and their ability to organize society with state and force and law by facilitating an environment of natural law where markets are able to produce their maximum goods for all. So in our way, it's that last bit, the cost of our strategy, which is the requirement that those who are unproductive, in other words, they can't fit into those markets, don't reproduce, thereby expanding their cost. This is the one cost, and it's that one cost that the other civilizations seek to overcome. Well, the Middle East does at least. It's limitation of the production of a demonstrably unfit for self-determination by self-determined means that's unstated and is the source of the three Abrahamic religions of the Old World in retaliation against the civilizational innovation of the Indo-European peoples. And it's the source of the Marxist, neo-Marxist, postmodern, feminist, PC, woke, anti-European, anti-white, anti-male, pseudoscientific revision of it, which is a rebellion against the necessity of defeat of the Red Queen by continuing natural selection by meritocratic means. That means that if you just can't hold up under markets, that you're maladaptive. And it's not saying you should be put to pasture or saying that you should be harmed or prohibited from the enjoyments of life. But if your genes are carrying that defect, we can't let you reproduce. That's just what domestication of animals and man and plants requires. So this strategy, the group strategy European, is the least divergent from the formal, meaning the logical, physical, meaning material, natural, meaning behavioral, and evolutionary, meaning adaptive laws of the universe. It's the opposite of the Abrahamic group strategy of the Semitic peoples, which seeks to violate the formal, logical, physical scarcity, material scarcity, natural amorality of man, the the reciprocal demand of man, cooperation necessary for man, and the evolutionary requirements, genetic load, regression to the mean, adaptation to defeat the Red Queen, all of those laws, and as the least divergent and most and fastest adaptive. That's continuing millions of years of humanoid evolution by maximizing physical, behavioral, cognitive, and informational maximization of adaptation to the universe, constantly increasing our capture of entropy, rapidly transforming ourselves from beasts to man to the gods we imagine. And this has created a natural struggle between the rule of law of natural law, continuing the laws of the universe, and rule by man and the arbitrary dictate of man for one purpose or another, either to profit regardless of the decline of man or to profit by causing the decline of man. This continuous historical cycle of incremental usurpation of decidability by the dictator, king, or state, or restoration of sovereignty of the people by restoration of our natural discovered law according to the formal, logical, physical, necessary, natural, cooperative, and evolutionary laws of the universe, well, that is just a cycle which we have to go through, just as we have a period of expansion and the underclass seeking to increase their number and consumption. We have to go back with the middle class and constrain the upper and lower from their profiting from devolution. So this is again the problem of the middle, or the problem of the entrepreneurial, or a problem of the moral, is trying to constrain the immorality of top and bottom despite their superior power on one end and their superior numbers often on the other. And so it's with this simple rule of sovereignty and reciprocity and display word and deed that we've dragged mankind kicking and screaming out of ignorance, superstition, hard labor, poverty, starvation and disease, suffering and child mortality, early death, the chaos of nature, and we've done it in a brief period of geological peace, a brief period of solar peace, and a brief period of galactic peace in just a few centuries in the ancient world and a few in the modern. So that's the overview of our strategy, and hopefully if I've been successful, I've shown you that this is the reductive form. In other words, it's the simplest possible way to describe our strategy, and that this strategy was accidental, environmental, and it's necessary. And just like the group strategies of other groups were environmental and accidental and necessary, but that there are only a couple ways of organizing people, and these are depend on geography and demographic distribution and the available military technology and the available means of organizing people. So the difference, though, is what I tried to sum at the end here, is that this initial setup, whatever you anchor yourselves in, makes you work incrementally closer to the laws of the universe or incrementally divergent from the laws of the universe. And whether you're closer to the laws of the universe and more divergent from the laws of the universe will determine your rates of evolution and the prosperity under it. So, in simple terms, the rate of evolution of the civilizations is determined by its initial conditions, and obviously the market civilization will evolve the fastest, the state-run will secondly, and the theological will evolve least and slowest, and lacking any organization, it's pretty hard to evolve. Anyway, so hopefully I've gotten my point across. In the next section, I'm going to try to go over in a little more detail. In other words, I'm going to put an analytical prose, somewhat repetitious of what we've just gone through, and then we'll close at the end. This is Kurt Doolittle for the Proprietarian Institute of Natural Law. Thanks for sticking with me, and hope you're enjoying the journey.